All right, hi everyone. Good morning. We're getting started right on time here. So happy Women's History Month and International Women's Day, and thank you for being in the room here. And I know we have a lot of listeners on the live stream as well. So I'm Anne-Marie Horowitz. Just to introduce myself, I'm the creator of the STEM Rising program in public affairs, and also here my capacity is the director of POWER, which stands for Professional Opportunities for Women and Energy Realized. And it's an employee resource group here that seeks to advance women's leadership, inclusion, and is really open to anyone who supports those goals. So I'm emceeing the program today, and I think I've been asked to do that because Women's History Month is my favorite month of the year. It's really a time to celebrate, to think about women and girls who have come before us and those who have championed them, who have been trailblazers, and to continue to get inspired, to keep working for the future and for equity. And like I said, it's International Women's Day today. We recognize that this is a global fight, that it takes all of us across the globe. And if you're on social media, Twitter, that kind of thing, you'll see a lot of conversation today about International Women's Day, and we encourage you to participate. So today we're talking about women of courage. You can see that in your programs. Just think for a moment about who this calls to mind for you. Is it someone like Amelia Earhart, who fearlessly took to the skies and is in the news today? Actually, they're looking at if they have found the kind of final chapter of her life yet. Or is it someone like Aly Raisman, who was the Olympian gymnast, who is courageous not only for leading her team, she was the team captain and Olympic gold, but also to come up and testify against the former physician for the team who was accused of multiple instances of sexual assault and spoke about what she and her fellow survivors faced during that time. Are you thinking of someone like Malala, who had the guts to speak out about the power of education for women in Pakistan, went on TV knowing the risks, and not only recovered from getting shot from that in retaliation, but also continues to champion for women's education across the globe? And you'll hear more about her and Melody's remarks today. Or are you thinking of a woman in your life, someone who might be closer to home, who has acts of courage that have really defined who you are, who you grew up to be? I'm thinking today of my grandmother, Pat Woods. She was the first woman to say go for safety at a rocket launch at Kennedy Space Center. And she had the courage to go get her GED after she was raised really in the cotton fields of Arkansas and through a lot of foster care systems, and is just an inspirational person in my life because she had the courage to go get that degree, become a typist at NASA, and that led to an amazing career and inspired my government service. So a final thought before we jump into today's program is, how are you going to be a woman of courage or support a woman of courage, not just today, but going forward? What's an action you're going to take after you walk out the doors or off the live stream from the program today? Are you going to take a seat at that table at a meeting and own your voice? Are you going to ask a female colleague to share her ideas at a meeting? Are you going to mentor somebody who's looking to go into STEM? Let's all take some action here today. So I would like you to please rise and welcome the Federal Protective Service Honor Guard, and we'll hear the national anthem from Patrice Carter.
Stand by. Colors. Uphead. Who. Flags. Carry. Port. Who. Ready. Step. Port. Time. Who.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order. Who? Out from the right. Forward. Who?
All right, let's give Patrice a round of applause. That was beautiful. We are so lucky to have Patrice's courage to share her voice and sing so boldly at all these amazing DOE events, so thank you for doing that. And now I'd like to welcome John Walsh up to the stage to provide some welcoming remarks and introduce our keynote speaker of today. John's really a man to know at the Energy Department. He is the acting director of the Office of Talent Management, which is, of course, a crucial asset to employee resource groups like Power and the Equal Employment Opportunity Office that's putting on today's event. And to all of us, really, who are employees of Energy as we're navigating our continual learning and trying to grow in our careers. So let's welcome up John. Thanks.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the department's 2018 Women's History Celebration. My name is John Walsh. I'm the director of our Office of Talent Management within the Office of the Chief Human Capital Officer. It's my turn to kind of kick off the program. So today we have a program that is being brought to you as a collaborative effort between the DOE's Office of Equal Employment Opportunity and the Power Resource Group. It's my pleasure to set the stage for today's program that features a panel discussion on displays of courage of women in the federal workplace, as well as keynote remarks from our own Miss Melody Bell. I want to thank the Office of Equal Opportunity and Employment and the Power Group for their leadership in bringing us together today and for hosting this program. And I want to welcome all of you on their behalf. As we all know, women have shaped America's history and continue to influence its future through both their public service and their commitment to leadership in government. Despite the adversity and barriers that women have faced, they collectively and dramatically influence our public policy, the building of our institutions, and help set the vision for the country leading us into the future. From championing basic human rights to promoting success and equal opportunity for all Americans, women have led the way in establishing our strong nation. Today's panelists and keynote speaker are shining examples of that model. They have succeeded in their own right, overcome barriers, and taken challenges on head on. The diversity of their experience will speak to both those challenges and the opportunities that they have created for themselves, as well as the opportunities that they are creating for others. Their ability to use the art of collaboration, create inclusive solutions, as well as their courage and determination serve to inspire future generations. The tenacity, experience, and contributions of our panelists today underscore the fact that women from all cultural backgrounds and in all levels of public service have a profound impact on who we are as a nation and the role that we play as federal agencies. As stated, as part of the 2018 President Proclamation for Women's History Month, and I quote, "As we reflect on the role of women throughout American history, we remember that women must always have access to the opportunities that our nations have to offer. Indeed, ensuring access to these opportunities is vital to our nation's prosperity." This will be an ongoing theme throughout the panel discussion as well as the keynote remarks, and is something that, as Anne-Marie mentioned, we need to take out of this discussion and this program with us today and really take it as a call to action. How can we continue to foster those opportunities? At this time, I'd like to recognize our keynote speaker for today, Ms. Melody Bell. Melody is the Associate Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Office of Environmental Management here at the department. Melody has a very diverse background and has served in multiple leadership positions, both within EM and across the department, as far with our NNSA as well as EERE. Ms. Bell started her career as an officer in the United States Air Force. She has received numerous personal commendations, including the National Defense Service Medal. Melody is a lifetime member of the Girl Scouts. She actively volunteers as a troop leader, providing mentorship to young women. I've recently had the opportunity to work more closely with Melody on our Workplace Improvement Network effort, and I can speak from experience that she is not afraid to take challenges head on, and her leadership is valued in that effort and across all other efforts. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Melody Bell.
Thank you very much, John, for those kind remarks. And somebody said good morning, and the audience was kind of tepid in their response. So I'm going to say again, good morning, DOE family. Good morning. Much, much better. First of all, I want to say that I'm very honored and delighted to be here to be speaking to you today on this topic that has inspired and motivated me throughout my career, Women of Courage. I also want to especially thank Anne and Cecily, Kelly, and the rest of the ED team, as well as Power, Anne-Marie, for bringing this program to you for Women's History Month. It takes a lot of work and effort to put these programs on, and I myself have always been educated, inspired by these special emphasis events that highlight our diverse points of view. So thank you very much for your efforts. First, let me ask a question of the audience. How many people know a woman of courage? Okay, that's great. Every single hand should go up, because I'm sure that we all know women of courage in our lives who show tremendous amount of strength, amount of bravery, or exhibited vast amounts of mental or moral inner strength to overcome, persecution, difficulties, illnesses, and danger. We all know those women who over several years have remained true to their convictions, who in spite of societal pressures, severe criticism and adversity, have overcome those barriers. So that brings me to today's theme, Women of Courage. More specifically, women of courage, character, and commitment. This theme brings to mind how women's work, their energy, their thoughts, and their spirits have courageously helped build the world that we all benefit today. I'm here today not to talk about myself, but instead to give thanks and homage to those incredible women, giants in our society, who have inspired, who have educated, and gave us a better understanding of what courage means. I realize that I am here today because I have been able to stand on the shoulders of those numerous courageous women who have either endured the physical or emotional courage in their lives. And that starts off with my mother. So I come to you now to share and discuss and highlight some of these courageous women. Anne-Marie had mentioned some of them. I'll go into a little more details. John had also mentioned a few of them. I will give you some others that you may not have heard about. But first, I want to spend a moment to talk about what today means International Women's Day. International Women's Day began in 1909 on February 29th, when a group of courageous women in New York said that they wanted to acknowledge, recognize the tremendous strength and contributions of women worldwide. So International Women's Day became that day. The next year, however, they moved it to March 8th, because as you know, February 29th only comes once every 4 years. Smart move. So International Women's Day then became National Women's History Week. And then finally, in 1987, Congress declared March as National Women's History Month, 78 years after that day in New York. But I will tell you now that although March has been designated as that official month, you and I know that women continue to make contributions of courageousness and bravery throughout the year, every single day. I call it Women of Courage 365. So what is courage? How do we define it? How is it acquired? Does it come with practice? How do we manifest courage in our own lives? I've learned that there's no one definition of courage. And as you can see, there's several definitions here. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm sure each and every one of you have your own definition of courage and how you approach courage. Courage can be described as bravery and ferocity in the face of danger, or it can be that internal, quiet strength to overcome severe pain or grief. Marianne Ann Rodmacher, author and poet of Lean Forward into Your Life, and this was before Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, stated, "Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is that little voice at the end of the day that says, I'll try again tomorrow." And I'm sure many of us have had that feeling, that mental moral strength to venture, to persevere, to withstand the danger, the difficulty, in spite of criticism. How many of you have heard this tremendous, amazing story of that courageous mother who, when a child is trapped under some heavy object or car, snapped into action and found the strength and courage to unbelievably lift that car to free that child and bring him to safety? How is that possible, you ask? Well, our brain has the ability, believe it or not, to, in response to fear, find that hidden mental, physical courage, and that's what happens when that occurs. But it still takes courage to initially overcome that immediate fear of paralysis. I want to give you a little bit of a history lesson. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the story of Rosa Parks and her courageousness of not giving up her seat that sparked the Montgomery bus boycott. I'm a Montgomery County resident. But what you may not know, the picture on the right, is Claudette Colvin, who refused to also give up her seat 9 months before Rosa Parks. And at the tender age of just 15, she was forcibly removed from the bus, arrested. Unfortunately, being a teen, and she was pregnant at the time, she was scorned by her community, and NAACP refused to support her and did not praise her for her courage. But what's an interesting fact is that Claudette was a member of the NAACP Youth Council, which Ms. Rosa Parks was a mentor of that council. So one would have to say that maybe that act of courage helped motivate others, such as Rosa Parks, to then also take a stand. And of course, we cannot forget Malala Yousafzai, who, as a 15-year-old Pakistani girl, stood up to the Taliban by openly supporting education of girls in her country. You've probably heard on that fateful day in October 2012, when a Taliban gunman shot her in the head and left her critically wounded. This assassination attempt was because of her open support of education for girls. However, her passion, her energy, and her faith, and some pretty amazing doctors doing God's work saved her. She survived to be an even stronger voice for education and girls around the world. And at the age of 17, Malala was the youngest recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014, where she has, as Anne-Marie said, has been an advocate for educating children all around the world, stating no child should be deprived the right of an education. And if you ever get a chance to read her book, I Am Malala, it's very impressive, very inspiring. And I've seen her in several interviews, and to this day, she forgives her attackers. That's courage and compassion. Now, as a graduate of the Air Force Academy and an Air Force veteran, I would be remiss if I didn't include the stories of those pioneering women in aviation and space. Throughout history, aviation has been shaped by these daring and courageous women who were pioneers in flight and innovation. The stories of these women certainly create a legacy that expands the frontiers of opportunity for generations to follow. Great courageous women like Amelia Earhart, who loved adventure. She purchased her own plane in 1921 and used that to, be the first woman to set records of that day. She continually flew and was courageous and took on more records. Unfortunately, her untimely death, but she died doing what she loved doing. And I guess there is a question of, where are the remains? A woman of courage. Or Jacqueline Cochran, who held more speed, distance, and altitude records than any other flyer of her time. There's a picture of her there. She piloted a bomber airplane during World War II to England, and there, as a flight captain in the British Air Transport Auxiliary, trained a group of female pilots to be transport for the war service. Then she came to this country and did the same program here as part of the Army Air Forces. And in July of 1943, she was named the director of the Women Air Force Service Pilots, WASP, which supplied more than 1,000 auxiliary pilots for the armed forces. As you know, before World War II, women were in traditional industries as secretaries, as textile workers, as maids, teachers. And as men went to war during that time, women stepped up. They took the courage to go into the factories. And you all know the story of Rosie the Riveter that symbolized this time for many women being courageous and doing their part to support the war effort. And then the picture on the right, Bessie Coleman, some of you may have heard of Bessie Coleman, who is not only the first African-American woman pilot in our country, she was also Native American. Her father was part Cherokee. She had to go to France, however, to get her pilot's license because she couldn't obtain her pilot's license in this country. But upon obtaining her license, she came back to this country and she did several air shows, pioneering the role and inspiration of several pilots of African American and Native American descent. Now on to the women of space. Dr. Mae Jemison, the picture to the top right. Dr. Mae Jemison, American engineer, physician, and NASA astronaut, became the first African American woman to travel in space when she went to orbit aboard Space Shuttle Endeavour on September 12th of 1992. And then we have Dr. Ellen Ochoa, NASA astronaut. She was the first Hispanic woman astronaut. And then we heard of Christy McAuliffe. Unfortunately, she was one of 7 who perished in the Challenger disaster. And of course, the first woman in space, Sally Kristen Ride. In 1983, she was the first woman to travel in space. And there's so many other amazing stories, what we call hidden figures, not only of tremendous physical courage, but mental fortitude and the ability to overcome the challenges and barriers of that time. The lives and work of these women and many more inspiring girls, inspiring women to achieve their full potential, but also encouraging boys and men to respect the diversity and the depth of their experience. And lastly, I cannot give a talk on women of courage without sharing the story of the first woman of courage for me, my mother. That's a picture of her on the right. My mother was born in Jamaica, and she came into this country as a teenager and enlisted in the Women's Auxiliary Corps, and she worked as a switchboard operator. Now, those of you that are under the age of 40, there's a few of you there. You may not know what a switchboard operator is. Yeah, I see a couple of heads acknowledging, oh, yes, we know that. Some of you probably did work switchboards. But anyway, being the oldest of 4 children at the time, ages 1 through 4, and with a single working mother, I witnessed my mother through courage and grit and commitment go back to school to get her education. And it started off slow, 1 class at the local community college. The next semester, a couple more classes, until she ultimately achieved her associate's degree and transferred to a 4-year college, University of Southern California, where she was successfully able to graduate magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts. And during that time, she had no money for babysitters, so all 4 of us went with her to the school library, the university library, the local library. I think I saw more libraries during that time than I've ever saw, and probably why I love libraries to this day now. She would have college student groups, work sessions at our house too. We were blessed with the educational inspiration, intellectual thoughts and ideas of numerous college students. Our mother always said that education was important, and she emphasized that we would continue in spite of any adversity and get our education. But more important than that, she also instilled in us the attributes of courage, of perseverance, and to always give back to others. So how do we develop and give wings to courage? How do we help our coworkers? How do we help our neighbors? How do we help our kids build and lead a courageous life? I just want to leave a few thoughts and ideas because I believe that courage is in each and every one of us. And several of us will exhibit it daily. Some of us will use a trigger, a life event, where that courageousness will come out, but it's there. But in case you need a little help on how to get that inner courage out, here are a few thoughts. First, recognize and accept your fears. Courage is not the absence of fears. It's your ability to overcome that fear. You work through the fear. The brave may not live forever, but the cautious do not live at all. Acknowledge that you are courageous. Everyone possesses courage in some way, even if it's hidden, even if it's something simple like asking the question, why, in spite of criticism. Have confidence in your ability to be courageous. By cultivating and projecting confidence in yourself and in others, you will be on that path to build a courageous life. You have to take risk. You have to accept failure. I don't know anyone that goes through life without any risk, without any adversity. You have to be willing and brave to say that I'm a courageous person, this is a minor setback, and you learn from those risks and setbacks to step out of your comfort zone and lead that successful, courageous life. Take the road less traveled. It's easy to take that worn path where everybody is doing something, but growing up, you know, if you gave your parents the excuse, well, mom, dad, everybody's doing it, you know what they said, you know, so take that road less traveled, stand by your convictions even if they're unpopular, and take unconventional paths to help increase your courage. And finally, keep moving forward. You will occasionally face adversity. You'll have negative thoughts. You'll have setbacks. You'll have a few moments of what I call the pity party. It's okay, but don't dwell in that. You want to be persistent, persevere, and keep moving forward. And I'd like to end with a quote from my favorite poet, Maya Angelou. Maya stated that courage is the most important virtue because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently. Find that courage to aspire to be who you want to be, and thank you very much.
All right, Melody, thank you so much for those inspiring remarks and really the education that you've shared with us today. Some of those stories are definitely hidden figures, and we appreciate you bringing them to light. And so while this screen's going up here, I want to welcome up Miss Cecily Johnson. She is the Affirmative Employment Program Manager with the Office of Equal Employment Opportunity. She'll come up to moderate today's panel. She'll be joined. You can find their bios in your book, so I won't get into all that. And also they'll introduce themselves a little bit more. But Catherine Glenn with NNSA, Sharon, that's our National Nuclear Security Administration, Sharon Wong with the Department of Homeland Security, Veronica Villalobos with the Office of Personnel Management, and Denise Abrams with the Department of Justice. So come on up.
Turn it on. So is it on? Oh, absolutely. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Cecily Johnson, and I am the Affirmative Employment Program Manager and also the Women's Program Manager for the department. I want to welcome you all and hope that you enjoy this panel discussion. So with that being said, I'm first going to turn first to Denise, who was once my supervisor. So I'm going to have everyone give a brief description of their background. So we'll start with Denise.
Do I take your mic? Okay. Good morning, everyone. So the first thing I need to do right now is give a shout out to Melody Bell, because my mother is also a Jamaican woman who came here and was a switchboard operator. So yeah, so I absolutely know what that is, and I remember going down and playing while she was at work many times when I was young. My name is Denise Abrahams. Right now I'm the Deputy Director on the Equal Employment Opportunity staff at the Justice Management Division, Department of Justice. A little bit about my background. I was actually born in Jamaica. I came here when I was pretty young, and grew up in New York, which is where my family emigrated to. They were not smart enough to go to California, like Melody's family. I actually started going to school at a very young age. Back in the day, I'm of the generation where there really wasn't such a thing as preschool. Everyone generally, the first time they went to school was kindergarten. But I was in Jamaica, and we had a school, which was just a woman who taught in her house. I was left behind with my cousin when my parents came here. My cousin was older than I was, so when she went to school, I wanted to go to school with her, so I went. Therefore, when I came up and started school, I was a little bit ahead of most people who didn't go to kindergarten till they were 5. So all that is just a shortcut to tell you I came up, went to school, college, law school, graduated law school at 22, which is a great thing, except when I look around now at all of my peers who are retiring, and then I look at my minimum retirement age and I think, I worked just as long as them, but I can't retire yet. I should have just done it the regular way when I was young.
Hi, I'm Catherine Glenn with the National Nuclear Security Administration, Office of Nonproliferation and Arms Control. I was raised in Yokohama, Japan, about 30 minutes south of Tokyo. My parents were academics, and they actually still live there. I attended the United States Naval Academy, so go Navy, and was commissioned a Navy ensign in 1998. I served just under a decade as a Navy helicopter pilot. I'm a veteran of Operations Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom. Left the service in '07 after my son was born, and then went back to school in 2009 with a 3-year-old and 1-year-old. I took the GRE 8 months pregnant, which I do not recommend to anybody. But I graduated with a master's in public policy, and I've been with NNSA since 2013.
And Veronica?
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Veronica Villalobos. I'm with the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, and right now I work with Employee Services, and what that means is we're the people who do all the policy, right? Think of all the policy you love and you hate. We're the ones who come up with it. I won't make any more jokes there. I'll also add, because I could go on forever on that piece. What I'll also add is I'm actually an attorney. Worked at EEOC for 10 years before I came to OPM, and I did diversity and inclusion work at OPM first. So I recognize some of your faces, I think, because I've been here before and talked about some of that work before. I see some nods, so that makes me quite happy. You remember. And I grew up in El Paso, Texas. Left there thinking, I got to go somewhere where I can communicate with people and not feel like everyone thinks I'm trying to say something different, right? Kind of that direct communication style. And I do find that depending on where you live in the country, you're going to find things that work better for you just based on how you communicate and where you are in your life. And I think that's an interesting thing that sometimes as women, we have to cope with a little differently, and maybe we experience it more than others. Let's see, what else shall I say about myself? I have 2 stepkids, 16 years old. They just started driving about 6 months ago, and I feel like they're always wanting to be around us, which is lovely, but it is having 2 16-year-olds all the time. So when the question comes up, what's my challenge? It'll easily be the 16-year-olds.
And Sharon?
Thank you. Good morning. So all I can say is Jamaica's in the house. So for those of you that may know me, I was actually born and raised in Jamaica as well. See? That's what I mean by that comment. And I actually migrated with my family to the US when I was college age. So I actually grew up, went through high school in Jamaica, and then my family migrated. You know, and just to the theme around women of courage, that my mom, we always give credit to our moms. You know, with someone without she was taken out of school at 8 years old and was able to raise 6 kids, 3 dentists, 1 physician, and 2 engineers. For someone with not even being taken out of school at 8 and how she learned as well. So you talk about a woman of courage. So I then moved from Jamaica while the family settled in Orlando. I moved to West Virginia, of all places, by myself. I love math. You know, I took 16 credits of calculus. I could, if I could just sit in a corner and write equations all day long, that was my dream. But how I got into HR will be another story, another day. So I went to West Virginia. I got my undergraduate degree in physics. You know, and all of this is detailed in my bio. I moved to Florida. When I graduated, I went to UCF, got my master's in engineering, and got a job at NASA because my classmate bugged me about what I was going to do. And like I say, I just thought I was going to go to school forever. And everybody says, why did you go in public service? You know, you had this great passion. And I will say, no, it was really because I had a classmate that nagged me, and I just filled out the application, gave it to him, really just to get him off my back. They did call me. I got a job, worked at NASA for 26 years, great place. But while I was at NASA, I got into the diversity and inclusion space. Veronica was my boss at one point. And then now I'm at DHS, and I serve as our Executive Director for Strategic Recruitment, Diversity and Inclusion. So I've gone from engineering, diversity and inclusion, and now I'm doing recruitment, veterans, pathways, and you talk about courage when you don't know any of these things and you are leading it. It really takes a lot, but you know, to me, one of the things I learned early was about raising your hand. It's kind of like when I was asked to be on this panel, I raised my hand. Now that I think about it, I might not have with all these people. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Sharon. I appreciate everyone giving a brief summary of their background. Now we're going to go into the interesting questions. And so I'm going to call on one, and if another one wants to add on to that, that's great. So with my first question, I'm going to go to Veronica, since we had that background in EEOC. In your opinion, what is the most important attribute one needs to possess to achieve success in the workplace?
Okay, so I'm glad I thought about this before I got here, because I think you need a lot of things, right? And key among them is listening, but really tenacity. Because lots of people are going to tell you no, lots of people are going to shut the door on you. There are going to be times where you think, I can't get up and do this another day. It'd be easier if I just stayed home. And so I would say it's tenacity, the ability to say, I know it's going to change, it's going to get better tomorrow, and my point of view is unique and it's valid. I think one thing that we sometimes do, and I'm not going to say as women, I think everyone does it, but since it's a Women's History Month, I'll say this. We will decide that if everyone else around us is saying something different, then maybe we're wrong. Rather than recognizing that maybe I have a unique point of view and I need to just continue to beat that drum until others hear it. And I don't know if many of you might have heard about the story in the last administration where the women noticed if they would raise some issue or bring up an idea, it would be, you know, just overlooked, and the next person would speak, and then a few people down the line, a man would say the same thing, and it's that experience we've all had where everyone goes, that's brilliant! My goodness, I wish someone had said that sooner. And the woman is left sitting there fuming, thinking, I said that, you know, 10 minutes ago. And the practice at the White House, what they would do is women started repeating what the other person said. And it's come to my attention lately, not only is that a good thing to do because you are able to help bring good ideas to light, but you also, you build allies when you do that, right? And they're able to support you in your new ideas and you and theirs. And so what I'll just say again is tenacity. Don't give up. Keep trying. And a no in one place doesn't mean you'll get the same answer somewhere else.
Thank you for that. Kate, would you like to add something to that, please? Do you want me to repeat the question? The most important attributes? Yes, absolutely.
So this is actually going to be my answer to a lot of the questions today. But I think one of the most important attributes in any profession is taking your work seriously, but not taking yourself seriously. I think imposter syndrome is real, and a lot of that comes from the fear of looking foolish, not being the expert in the room, you know, those things. So I think, you know, understanding that the work you do is important, and that means doing your homework, knowing as much as you can, but also not being afraid to say, you know what, I'm not the expert, I don't know. You know, asking that question, you know, I have 2 kids. They tell me I'm foolish every day of the year, right? And every job has that. Every job has the duty that nobody wants. Every job has embarrassments and setbacks. And sort of being willing to take that on and say, you know what, this isn't about me. This is about the mission. So if I look silly, if my hands get dirty, it's not about me. What I do is important, our mission is important, and that's what we're all here for.
Thank you for that, Kate. And so, Sharon, has there ever been a time in your professional career when your assertiveness was misconstrued?
So, you know, despite being in the HR field, again, I've always felt that I've been very more a logical type person. And with, again, the whole math and technical piece, it's always been about making sure that everything I do or when I present a case, it's been about data-driven, that I have the data to back up my case. And so I would say that there are times when, and you're right, sometimes I think it is because of how men and women see each other, or how people see men and women, and the difference is that there are times when I have come and I've said, this is my, you know, this is my proposal or whatever, and here's the data to back up, it has come off as strong. I don't necessarily think I'm an assertive person as such. You know, that statement that was up there being about that more quiet kind of, I think that more applies to me. But I think in those cases when I have come and I said, this is what I'm proposing, or this is my response, and here's the data to back it up, Sometimes I think when you're on the receiving end of that, you see assertiveness because you don't always then have an answer or a comeback. So then it has been perceived as, wait a sec, you need to back off here. Well, why do I need to back off? My argument is sound. I have my data to back it up. And so in those cases, and I agree that sometimes I probably do need to, because it's like, I've got it, this is my answer, I'm right. But we always have to, again, that's the whole thing that diversity and inclusion also taught me. That is about making sure that we see the other person's perspective, see also where they're coming from, and that we're not always right. Because, you know, that's another thing I've learned in the D&I space. That is about that diversity of thought, diversity of perspectives, and about putting yourself in that other person's shoes.
Thank you for that. Denise, has there ever been a time in your professional career? There was one interesting story that you gave me. I will keep in mind about your assertiveness being misconstrued.
Okay, well, that's not the story I'm going to tell, but I know what you're talking about. Unlike Sharon, yes, I'm always perceived as being assertive, which sometimes can, you know, be defined as aggressive or stubborn. And I think, to piggyback off what Veronica said about your most important quality, or an attribute that's very important at work, I also think, in addition to tenacity, which is where you get the stubborn and assertive, flexibility is also something that's very important. And by that I mean, and I'm sure everyone here, women and men, and especially if you think back to your childhood when you really wanted something and your parents said no, and so you figured a workaround to get to the yes that you wanted. So maybe the question that you asked and the way that you asked it, the answer was no. And so then you go back and you think of you know, but mom, if you let me do this, you know, this will be the benefit, or think about it this way. And I think sometimes at work it's the same thing. You present an idea, it's not well received for whatever reason. It doesn't mean you're wrong, but maybe the person that you're talking to just isn't looking at it from the same viewpoint that you are. So you kind of have to go back and maybe present it in a different way, think of a different method to get them to the yes that you want. Now, obviously, that's not always going to work, and sometimes you kind of have to know when to take no for an answer so you don't drive yourself crazy. But I think sometimes just off the bat, you want to rethink your proposal and present it in a different way sometimes, so that flexibility is important, and then you're seen more as a team player as opposed to someone who is just dogged and determined and wants their way no matter what.
Well, thank you for that. Kate, what, if any, obstacles did you overcome to achieve the success you enjoy today?
Well, when I matriculated at the United States Naval Academy, I did not know the words to the national anthem. I did not know the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, because I grew up as an expat overseas, right? But worst sin of all, I did not know what the line of scrimmage was, which resulted in a lot of push-ups. But more seriously, I think one thing that has been a challenge in my entire career has been trying to manage both my husband and my career together. That has always been a difficulty for us. My husband, when I was off being a Navy pilot, was a Marine Corps pilot, which means we were trying to juggle those two careers. We were very lucky to be co-located, stationed together in Southern California. But we actually sat down and did the math, and on our 5th wedding anniversary, we had been in the same zip code for about 22 months. So, you know, there were some difficult decisions. When our marriage was in a rough place, we decided to prioritize staying together and let our careers take a back seat for a little while, which was a difficult choice for us. Then when I was accepted into graduate school, my husband actually left active service. He dropped down to the reserves to follow me to Massachusetts, which I recognize is an incredible privilege on my part, you know, to have such a supportive partner. But to say that that was easy on our marriage would be a complete lie. You know, going from being Lieutenant Colonel Glenn to being Mr. Kate was a difficult transition for my partner, and that's something that I think we still work through. And then, of course, there's mommy guilt. You know, anybody with children. You know, in my current position, I travel a good amount, and I enjoy it tremendously. But there is always that concern of I'm not there to read the bedtime stories. I'm not there to kiss the boo-boos, you know. So sort of saying, once again, you know, my work matters. This mission matters. And sometimes that means, honey, I need you to pick up the kids and empty the dishwasher because I'm not there to do it. honey, I need you to take the trash out and take the dog to the vet because I'm too tired on a Saturday because I just flew back from Dakar. You know, those difficult conversations, I think, are something that a lot of women face.
Well, thank you for that, Kate. So with closing out, I would like to give each one of you less than 2 minutes, if you can, to provide to the audience, and this is the question, what advice would you give others who desire to maximize their contribution to their organization? And I'll start with Veronica.
Thank you. So I would offer to lead and be authentically yourself, right? And I say to be authentically yourself because that's one of the great challenges I think we all experience in the workplace. We are trying to figure out how are we going to fit in while also making a name for ourselves and doing something that matters. And for most of us, that's why we're civil servants. I remember when I first got my SES position, I was in my mid-30s, walking through the door and recognizing that it was almost all men around this large table of senior executives, and that they were all much older than I was. And thinking about how do I stay authentic to who I am, while still leading, while still honoring who they are, and helping them see my perspective in the same way that I see theirs. So if I give anything to you, spend some time thinking about what your work persona is and making sure that it is a place where you rest, where you feel comfortable every day when you get back from work.
Thank you for that. Sharon?
Sure. I'll stay within my 2 minutes. So I would say the first thing is raise your hands, like I say. And even that takes courage, I will tell you. All right? But just remember that you have to dig deep at times. Because every single day, even now, I still have to dig deep. Don't be afraid to speak up. That was one of the early lessons I learned. And just a quick story. Because it makes you so easily overlooked. I was in staff meeting, and every month, my boss would announce who got into our technical leadership program. Really was the first of our stepping stone. And every month I heard who got nominated, somebody's name other than mine. And then one day, after a meeting, I pulled her aside and I said, how come I never hear my name? Here is it. This person and I had started together. She then got promoted as the supervisor for the office. I was godmother to her kids. So this is not somebody that did not know me, okay? Yet, would never hear my name called. And what she said was, I never knew you were interested in moving up. You were just such a great working, get your job done, you do the best you can. Never showed you never stated interest. By speaking up, that really started opening up all kinds of doors, because now it gave her an idea. Hey, an opportunity comes up. Hey, Sharon, are you interested? Really, really helped. Look for opportunities to showcase your skills and talents while doing the best darn job you can do at what you do. Because too many times, people take on all these other assignments and forget what they got paid to do. All right? Build your networks, cultivate mentors and sponsors. And I hope you all know the difference between mentors and sponsors. And we can have a conversation after this. Take charge of your own career, as nobody else is going to be looking after it. Because I tell you, many times people think their supervisors are supposed to help them move. It's your responsibility. And here's the final thing that I was always told, and this is one of the models I heard. What interests my boss fascinates me.
Thank you for that, Sharon. Denise?
Well, I don't think I can improve on that. But I very much agree, and one of the things I was going to say is what she actually started out with, which is volunteer, speak up, always offer to do something. I think after a while, when you're in a job for a certain amount of time, you know how to do it. And so maybe you can get your job done in less than the 8 hours a day that you're there, right? So you could go online, you could shop, you could get on the phone and, call your friends, or you could volunteer to do something new and something different that your supervisor may not have thought of. Is it more work? Yes, it's probably more work, but it's also going to get you somewhere further along in your career, maybe somewhere you didn't even know you wanted to go when you volunteer for that assignment that just kind of sounds interesting, even though maybe you don't have any experience in that area. Well, guess what? Once you volunteer, you're going to get that experience. And also, like I said before, be flexible in order to get your work done. I will quickly tell you the story that Cecily was referring to. In my previous life, I was a federal prosecutor. I was an assistant U.S. attorney, and the way our teams were set up, there were 3 of us on a trial team, senior person and 2 junior people. Of course, I started out as a junior person. Eventually, I was the senior person, and the 2 junior people on my team were men, and we were in front of a female judge. And whenever I asked for something or made a request of the court, it was almost always denied. There was a lot of drama. But then I realized when I had one of my junior people make the same request, fine, no problem, Mr. So-and-so. Well, you know, sure, we can do that. No problem, Mr. So-and-so. So what did I do eventually? I was in court supervising them. If it was a particularly tricky issue, even if it was my case, passed the case file over to Mr. So-and-so, told him what to ask the judge. He asked the judge, no problem, Mr. So-and-so. So I got what I wanted. I had to work around it. It was a little disappointing to me, I will say, that it was a female judge who seemed to so clearly have a preference for the men over the women. And so that was just kind of a professional disappointment on my part, because, you know, the sisterhood, right? But I did what I had to do to get the job done.
Thank you for that, Denise. Kate.
So I'm going to repeat myself, as promised. I think take your work seriously, don't take yourself seriously. And I'm also going to tell a very short story to sort of make that point. This was a story oft repeated in Navy leadership training, which I can't believe I'm actually quoting at this point. So a carrier battle group, an aircraft carrier, and all the ships surrounding it are out to sea doing training, right? And they get word that the chief of naval operations, the CNO, is flying out to visit the aircraft carrier, right? So of course the crew goes into a frenzy of painting and buffing and cleaning and making everything sparkling and spit shined, right? Great. The chief of naval operations comes on board, he tours the flight deck, he tours the CIC, he talks to all the officers. Great, good job, guys, everything looks wonderful. He's getting ready to step in his helicopter and fly away. There's a line of sailors ready to salute the CNO as he gets in the helicopter. And there is one engine tech who puts his hand up and says, "But sir, but Admiral." "What?" "I spent 3 days cleaning a head down on deck 7. You gotta come see it. It's the cleanest head in the Navy." A head is a bathroom, by the way. So the CNO, to his credit, says, "All right, sailor, you show me the cleanest head in the Navy." And they walk down, 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 down into the guts of the ship below the waterline. And there was a hand-painted sign above a men's head, and it said, "The cleanest head in the Navy." And it was spit-shined, it was clean, it was beautiful. So I would say if you're the sailor, then you know what? Even if your job is to clean a head, it's not about you, it's about the mission. So get your hands dirty, get it done, do the best darn job you possibly can. And if you're the admiral, if you're that person in authority, give credit where credit is due. Make that sailor feel good about themselves. Even if their job was to clean a toilet, they did a good job, it deserves acknowledgement. It's not about you, it's about the mission. I think that's it.
Well, thank you for that, Kate. And thank you all for giving your input on this panel discussion. And so with that being said, Anne Marie will come back up.
All right. You can see why Women's History Month is my favorite month of the year. Conversations like these are amazing, and we want to thank all of our panelists for coming out today. I know only one of you is located in the building, so thank you for your wisdom. And Cecily, thanks for planning this. We're going to have Anne come up, so you're all welcome to return to your seats for her remarks. Anne Augustin is a great mentor to me. She's the Principal Deputy Director of the Office of Economic Impact and Diversity, 30-year employee of the Department of Energy, and oversees the diversity, inclusion, civil rights, equal employment opportunity. And so let's welcome Anne and really keep persisting in our fight today for women of courage. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you very much, Anne Marie, for your kind words. And really, what a great presentation. My only regret is that we didn't have more time to have more questions for the panelists, because it seemed as though it went by very, very quickly. And what interesting perspectives you've all offered. Really, my heartfelt thanks to everybody, to Melanie Bell, our, part of the DOE family who spoke so eloquently, to our panelists who really caused me to reflect. And this is something that I think as a woman we all think about, but I'm sure I look out over the, in the audience here, we have a lot of men, and I think some of what we heard today is equally as important to men as it is to women here. Some of the same themes. Make sure you take risks. Maybe late in my career, I learned, you can be in a fur-lined rut. You can love what you do. But is that really advancing you? Don't be afraid to ask for challenges. And I know people on my staff have always heard me say, you have to take care of yourself because no one else will do so. I mean, as a supervisor or manager, we really want to do the best for our employees, but sometimes we just don't have the time. But when you do have that time, make sure you're assertive, make sure you come into, your boss or your mentor or supervisor and say, this is where I want to go in my career. Sometimes, speaking for myself, we may not have the ability to do something within your own space, but maybe then if you have the opportunity to offer people or detail or help speak to people about what it is they want, how can they, how can we help, how can we partner? So as I listened again to, some of the, the observations that were made, I thought, wow, they're really, really on point. And to Kate, I thought it's the first time, and it's really important, the focus on the mission. And I've often thought to myself when people are asking for challenges, how important it is to make sure that when you take on other responsibilities, you do it in addition to and not in lieu of your work. Because we are all being paid to do a job. We are all here. We want to advance our own careers, but at the same time, we're here to advance the mission of an organization. And so finding that equilibrium sometimes can be really difficult. But again, this was just fascinating. And I so wish I had an opportunity to have more of a conversation, and I hope that all of you did as well. A special thanks to Cecily Johnson in my EU office. As people have mentioned, we work really hard. These programs just don't materialize overnight. It takes many, many months of preparation, and a key theme that I heard here again, and people hear me all the time, flexibility, flexibility. Things happen in life. People can get sick, things change, and you just have to pivot when these things happen and just not let them impact you. So again, a tribute to the folks that we heard about that theme of flexibility. And it does take a village, I said, we've got everybody in the economic impact and diversity that always lends a hand to help their colleagues out on these. We all do what we can. But again, right now, the weight was carried by Cecily Johnson. I do really want her to be commended for a job well done in gathering these group of esteemed women together. Now, we do have some certificates of appreciation for the folks who have been so gracious to give us your time and talent. So I'm going to get them. And then, Cecily, if you would mind coming up. And Anne-Marie, is she still here? I think it would be nice for both of you to be in some of the photos that we'll take. And I'll read the inscriptions, and we'll try to get you out of here on time. But again, thank you to everybody who's taken time from their day to celebrate with us, because everybody who hears me, all of these programs in the Special Emphasis Lane are designed to be educational in nature. And we do hope that if, like with training or anything else, if you've learned one thing or you leave here reflecting on something that might enrich your life, that this will have been worth your time. So thank you very much, and we'll get to the presentations. And our first one will be to our guest speaker, Melanie Bell, and the inscription reads, "For your outstanding support and recognition of the 2018 Women's History Month observance, Women of Courage, held on March 8, 2018 at the United States Department of Energy. Your expert knowledge of organizational development and leadership significantly enhanced the execution of this event and gave the audience a better perspective on the history of women ascending the career ladder. Your standard of excellence serves as a sterling example for all employees at the U.S. Department of Energy," and I might add, and elsewhere in the federal and private sector. Thank you very much. Okay, and let's see, I think the next ones should be alphabetical, if my recollection is correct. Okay, so Denise, Abrams, if you'd be kind enough to come up. Your certificate of appreciation reads, in recognition of your outstanding support for the 2018 Women's History Month observance, Women of Courage, held on March 8, 2018 at the U.S. Department of Energy. Your insights and contributions to the panel discussion were instrumental to the success of this program. The department would like to thank you for a job well done and wish you continued success in the future. Thank you again, Denise. I'm sorry, I may be more efficient here. And Catherine Glenn. And I don't like to repeat myself, but these, I think some of these look like they're the same. So we'll go ahead unless you, would you mind if you all remembered what I just mentioned, maybe rather than for the sake of efficiency. But thank you very much, Catherine. Our sentiments that we conveyed previously equally apply to you. And Veronica Villalobos. And thank you, Veronica, for your participation and insights today. And last but not least, Sharon Wong. Thank you again, Sharon. Well, this concludes our program for Women's History Month. I know the Power Group has lots of other exciting events that are planned in the coming months, and I think you should be looking. There was a DOCAS that went out today. I see Emery sitting there, and probably additional ones and opportunities for enhanced growth. And so, once again, thank you very much for attending, and thank you to everybody who made this such a success.